After nearly 500 days away, Toronto FC fans were allowed back into their house by the lakeshore on Saturday, and even a somewhat disappointing draw couldn't dampen what was a celebratory day at BMO Field. This is Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks. My name is Mitchell Tierney, and ahead on today's show, we'll talk more about that night at BMO Field, Jozy Altidore's heroics, and plenty more. It's also a big week for Canada soccer, as you can tell based on Mikey and I's attire here. Men's national team looking to win their first knockout game of the Gold Cup since 2007. And because we know you're tired of just listening to the three of us ramble, we have a great guest on this week. Dr. Clare Rustad, former Canadian women's national team player and CBC sports analyst, will get us set for the Tokyo 2020 games. But first, as always, joined by Jeffrey P. Nesker and Michael Singh. How you guys doing?
Jeff?
How you doing?
I mean, after returning to BMO Field, things are starting to finally feel a little bit normal here. We have the Canadian women's national team who are, going to be starting their Olympic run, which we've been waiting so long for. And then we also have the men's national team who are in the Gold Cup. We have 2 TFC games this week. How else can we put that, boys? Just feeling ecstatic right now. And
still buzzing, man. It might have been the Smirnoff Ice, but it might have also been BMO Field. So we'll see.
There you go. And I'll mention off the bat, I may have to dip out here early because TFC is having a press conference soon. So hopefully I'll be back to bring you guys some juicy updates. Obviously some devastating news today with Iowa Canola, but we'll get into that probably a little bit further later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys were there, obviously. I unfortunately couldn't make it, but what was that like, just being back? I know, Mike, you got to be back a little bit over the pandemic when they were playing those home games, but obviously nothing's like BMO Field with fans.
No, and you know what I forgot? And, criticize me as much as you want for this, but when you go to BMO and you rumble your feet on the metal rafters, I forgot what that sound was like. And when it first happened, I'm like, oh my God, we are back. It was buzzing. It was electric. I know there was only 7,000 and the stadium looked empty, but there are times where it honestly felt like a full house, especially with the return of Jozy Altidore, right?
I forgot how to do it. My feet weren't working. I lost my coordination and I was trying to figure out new and different ways. Also, I had a scarf tied around my leg. Well, yeah. And I had a scarf tied around one leg because I foolishly wore a winter scarf to that cesspool of humidity and it wasn't happening. So I ended up being Steven Tyler for a bit. It was pretty fantastic. Yeah.
It's funny, a little story here. The first Toronto FC game I ever went to must have been, I guess, probably their second year, 2008. They're playing the New York Red Bulls, and my dad and I kind of messed up the traffic times, and so we got there at around halftime, and we go into the stadium, and you can just hear. This was also like shortly after they had kind of those issues with like all the screws falling out at BMO Field, but you just go in and you hear the feet above you, and I remember my dad looking up like, "What did I just bring my kid to?" But we very quickly fell in love with that atmosphere, and that that stuff like that's a big part of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was pretty surreal. I mean, I think that's the best way to describe it. It was all vibes. I finally figured out the proper way to greet people. I was going for handshakes, and then eventually it became elbow bumps. That also might have been the Smirnoff Ice. That stuff's pretty dangerous. It's pretty deadly.
We're getting sponsored by Smirnoff Ice by the end of the show.
I hope not. I hope not, because that would be terrible because I don't like Smirnoff Ice.
Never mind. There goes that.
Yeah, we almost had it.
Ruining sponsorships wherever I go, boys. But yeah. I mean, it was pretty terrific. I know Tej wrote a piece that's been retweeted by the club proper about his experiences with his 8-year-old son going back to the ground. It's a really wonderful read. I think it encapsulates what we were all feeling. I think we all had an idea of what it would be like, and it both exceeded and was entirely different than what I expected.
As Tej said, therapeutic, whatever word you want to use there. It was just a feeling of like, okay, this pandemic is really starting to get behind us and we're really starting to get ahead of this thing. And if you haven't read the piece yet, I highly recommend doing that. It's up on our site. The piece was so good that Toronto FC tweeted it out, which, just lets you know just the type of writer that Tej is and his ability to, relate to other people. I think you can really feel that in that piece, and it's definitely just such a relatable story. So highly recommend you go check out that piece. But yeah, like I said, it's really feeling like we're getting back here, gentlemen.
I like that Ben's trolling me now. He was on Scooter's show on Twitch yesterday, and I spent most of his hour absolutely chirping at him. So I suppose turnabout is fair play. Just for reference, he wrote Smirnoff Ice has left the chat. Which,
amazing.
No, Ben, I'm not. Anyway, I don't know if you saw the private message, but Claire is here in the waiting room, and I'm wondering if we should bring her on.
Sure. Yeah. Let's get to Clare Rustad.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Joined now by Dr. Clare Rustad.
In a hotel room, and I swear there's like no angle. You can't see my unmade bed.
That's all right. That's all right.
That's why I have the green screen behind me. It just covers everything.
Yeah.
That's where I like. How old are you guys?
Guess.
No, I'm not
take your guesses.
No, that's different than me. So that's where you guys know how to do things, and I don't.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, joined by Dr. Clare Rustad, 45 caps for the Canadian Women's National Team, an Olympian with Canada at the 2008 Beijing Games, now part of CBC's broadcast team for the 2020 Tokyo Games. Claire, an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Such a pleasure.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Well, after a year of waiting, Canada's finally set to open their Olympics tomorrow against Japan. What can we expect from this first game, and kind of a tough opening fixture, obviously, against the hosts?
Yeah, and yet a host without a host crowd is going to be interesting. I'm sure they didn't have to travel, but I mean, the benefit of being the host team is having a host crowd usually. So yeah, I don't even know what that feels like. I hated playing in front of nobody. The favorite game, like the best memories I have of playing were like under the lights at night with a big crowd. And I didn't care where we were playing. Like I liked doing that in Mexico where they hated us. Like it was the best. But so it's going to be interesting. Japan's still in a bit of a rebuilding phase, and I'm not sure they've really found their feet yet. Kind of a disappointing set of games in their preparation leading up to this. They haven't really played anybody anywhere near the top 10. Last time they did was early last year. And still, I don't think kind of have their feet under them, particularly in the attack. I mean, we always kind of classically think of Japan as being really well organized, and I mean, they will definitely be very technical on the ball, but they haven't been as well organized as we're used to seeing them, particularly in the She Believes Cup, which is my least favorite tournament name ever.
Yes. You know that I almost got into trouble because it is a charitable foundation, and I was raging on it. And yeah, one of my least favorite moments of this show.
But it does a disservice to the professionalism of the sport. So anyway, we'll leave that aside. But so I expect them to be very technical on the ball, very comfortable on the ball. But there are holes to exploit, and they certainly don't have a Homari Sawa anymore. They don't have an Ai Miyami anymore. And while I've seen glimmers from the Japanese in terms of some of the younger players, it's just not quite there yet. I think the Canadians have an opportunity to at least take some points off the home team. And certainly, I mean, if you think about this, the absolute strength for the Canadians is their back line, right? Their back four is fantastic. I think going over to Europe for Shalina Zadorsky and playing for Tottenham has been an excellent move. She's technically come a really long way. Obviously Buchanan and Lawrence have done really well over in Europe, and I'd actually like to see Lawrence push in the midfield and maybe put Jade Riviere at fullback.
Let's go.
Nice, let's go. Yeah.
Hey, well, controversial opinion alert. I'd actually like to see them put Vanessa Gilles in the center back and put Buchanan up front. Not that I think that's going to happen, but yeah.
I like it. I like
it too.
Up to the box here.
Yeah.
So that's obviously their strength. Certainly much more comfortable on the ball than a Canadian back four has, I think, ever been, which is great. It means they can build out of there. I'd like to see them be a little bit less prescribed building out of the back, and a little bit more creative in the midfield, which is, I think, I think maybe one of their weaknesses is they're not as creative in the center of the park as I'd like them to be. More comfortable on the ball. You know, I've seen some kind of glimmers of hope there, but really just not as creative as they need to be if they want to be able to compete with any of really the top, 5 or 6 teams. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think it's news to anyone that they have trouble scoring. That is it's not even an opinion. It's a thing that happens. So that's going to be where they may struggle, especially against a well-organized team if the Japanese have managed to kind of get a handle on that since 2020. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think the Canadians have to vary their attack. They can't just drive to the end line and cross the ball into the box every single time.
Oh yeah, yes.
Have to be able to shoot from outside the box. There are French fullbacks who are terrifying outside of the box. The Canadians have to be able to shoot from outside and shoot quickly, right? I mean, Fleming scored a beautiful goal against Wales, but she had like 20 seconds to set it up. I'm exaggerating. Mm-hmm. She had a lot of time to set that up, and they will not have that. Particularly in the knockout phases of this tournament, so you have to be able to shoot quickly.
So Claire, on that same note, aside from Christine Sinclair,
that's all I have to say.
All right, a test for you here. Aside from Christine Sinclair, where is Canada gonna get those goals from?
So, good question.
He stole Mitch's question.
Was it your question? Sorry, I didn't even know.
That's fine.
So, I'm not sure is my honest answer. I think that one of the only other players really in that group of strikers that has real striker instincts is Evelyn Vienne. And when I say striker instincts, I mean she's pretty new to the international game and still might not quite be at that pace yet, but she gets herself in positions where she gets on the end of 50% crosses, kind of a last-ditch cross, and somehow she's on the end of it and she finishes. And she's done that in her collegiate career and her professional career, and she started to do it for Canada against decent teams too. So I expect we'll probably see her as a substitute. I hope we see her sooner rather than later as a substitute. I think if she gets going and gets scoring, I think they'll do okay. Adriana Leon has proven herself to kind of come on and at least disrupt things when she comes on as a substitute. I'm not sure of her fitness. She had an injury leading up to this tournament. So we'll see how that goes. So it is hard to say. And I hope that some of the midfielders start to have a go from outside of the box. I mean, even just to try to catch a goalkeeper off guard and really try to switch things up a little bit. I mean, Nichelle Prince and Deanne Rose do a great job. I actually like Nichelle Prince coming off the bench. I think she comes on and makes a difference when she comes off of the bench. And we may see stuff from them, but really, I'd like to see Evelyn Vienne as soon as possible. And hopefully they can find Christine's feet in the right way. I mean, she's not as fast as she used to be. Can't constantly just play balls through and hope for her to run on to them. You have to be wise in how you deliver service to her. So, we'll see what happens.
I'm going to go macro for a bit because obviously, as a Cambridge educated epidemiologist,
are you reading my Wikipedia page right now?
No, I found this on something different. And of course, having helped organize the Women's World Cup in Canada, I wonder what your perspective is on how the players are feeling in this wacky sort of COVID situation at the Olympics. What your insights would be about how weird it must be for them right now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, weird not playing in front of a crowd. That part's a little bit bizarre. I mean, I work I'm a family doc, a rural family doc, so I work in a clinic, and I work in the Emerge, so I'm pretty used to the weirdness of COVID protocols right now.
Right.
And CBC honestly is all over it too. So that part can take a little bit of getting used to if you aren't used to used to the kind of the structured regime of that.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, every team in this tournament's in the same boat, right? I mean,
Right.
It wasn't just something that happened here, and it wasn't just something that happened in Europe. It happened everywhere. So we can't. I mean, the Canadians certainly can't use that as an excuse in any way, because I mean, everybody had a huge hiatus with no international play. They're all kind of on an even playing field. I do think that Canadians sought out at least some better opponents than the Japanese did leading up to this tournament. And I'm not sure if that was, I honestly don't know why the Japanese didn't find anybody better to play against. But I think honestly, everybody's going to be in the same boat. And it's going to have to be a lot about your mental preparation and how you deal with putting some of that regimented stuff aside and still trying to focus on your own game and making the most of the times that you do have it training. And then also making the most of the boredom of sitting in, a hotel room in between games. And how do you adapt to that? I did not do well with that. I was my favorite part of playing with the team. But yeah, so how do you adapt to that? What do you do to prepare yourself for the next day? Not just the next game, but what do you do to prepare yourself for the next day and the next training session in between games? Really trying to make that boring time work for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's an important point. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, it looks like Mike took off for the Toronto FC press conference, so
yes,
good.
He did.
Can't steal any more of my questions. But but yeah, I was wondering about Bev Priestman. Obviously, this is her first major tournament as a senior level head coach, at least. What have been your impressions of what the job she's done so far? Obviously, difficult coming in right in the start of a pandemic and with a major tournament on the horizon. And how big of a tournament is this for her in terms of her coaching career in general?
Yeah, I don't actually know Bev Priestman personally. I was a little worried that we were just kind of rotating within the Herdman universe when they hired her, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it almost seemed like the team maybe was ready for a change. And they hired her. I think she's done a good job. I think the defining moment ended up being, okay, who's back when there was just an 18-player roster? Who's she actually going to choose for this 18-player roster? And I know a lot of us were kind of holding our breath, like, is she going to have the guts to make some very hard decisions or some unpopular decisions? And the decision to initially take Evelyn Vienne over Jordan Huitema, I think, was the right decision. I've not yet seen Huitema perform against good teams. I think she scores against some weaker teams. She's young. She has a lot of growing to do. And I thought that showed a lot of guts from Priestman to actually be able to make that move, because Huitema has been highly marketed for this team. And yet making those decisions based on current form and performance is really important going into a tournament like this that's short, actually kind of weirdly easy to medal in, but also easy to not. And you need to have people who are on form and ready to perform right away. And I think she made the right decision initially. I mean, I think it's great that they allowed 22 players. 18-player roster is ridiculous in a tournament that could last 6 games. And particularly coming off of a year where nobody played, and fitness may be an issue for everybody, and injuries may be an issue for everybody. Going to 22 players makes sense. So I think it's great that Sophie Schmidt made it into the final roster, and then Jordan Huitema made it in the final roster. But I think those decisions to put those players aside initially showed some bravery from Priestman. That's encouraging. And I'm hoping that her lineup decisions sort of follow along with that.
Terrific. Let's let Ben get his question in. He asked, should Huitema prioritize playing time over bench minutes at a massive club like PSG? Sort of a offshoot.
Like the eternal question, right? You want to be in the most professional environment that you can and play and train with the best players you can every day, but sometimes that means that you're sacrificing playing minutes. And And I've gone back and forth about this in my head, and I'm still not sure I know what the right thing is to do.
Yeah.
I mean, tough. I think of players like I don't know. You guys still didn't answer the age question, so you're probably old enough to remember. Do you remember Sean Wright Phillips?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And MLS superstar Bradley Wright Phillips.
Yeah. So I mean, playing really well at a was it Man City initially, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. I think
playing really well, starting playing, made the move to Chelsea, stopped playing, and sort of dropped off the radar a little bit. And it's really hard to say because I do think those not just game minutes, but big game minutes, right? I mean, even Jesse Fleming's made a kind of gutsy move to go to Chelsea and getting some minutes in Champions League play, but not necessarily playing the Champions League final.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to say. I think players should. It really ends up being an individual choice. But I do think that finding a team where you are going to get some big game minutes is important. And maybe PSG isn't the right spot for her. I don't know. I think that we can't discount how important the training environment is, though, right? So being in a professional training environment like that is really important. Playing against players who are world-class is really important, too. So, yeah, I don't have an answer for that, actually. I don't know.
I mean, let's get Diana Matheson to get the NWSL team in Toronto, and then Jordan Heidema can be the superstar for that team.
Yeah, I mean, that's the overarching theme here, hey, is that, 73% of the Japanese team plays in Japan, and 0 of the Canadian players play in Canada, and I think it's really important because it's not just about the professional league, right? That's not even necessarily the real goal. The goal of having a professional league is for that to kind of trickle down and improve the level of player development at young ages, right? I mean, I'm not thinking about necessarily professional players playing for the team. I'm thinking about properly training, 8-year-olds and getting them in a training environment where they have coaches who are licensed and who know what they're doing. And I mean, it's nothing to discount the volunteer hours that a lot of parents put in, but I think it's important to make sure that coaches who are coaching kids know what they're doing technically and tactically.
I agree.
And that's the point. I mean, I think it's great to have all your players play in their home country, but the real goal of that is to trickle down into player development at younger ages.
Yeah, we're seeing that on the men's side with the CPL. I mean, 3 years into its existence, and I absolutely think it's long past its overdue date for the women's game, especially with an NWSL franchise in one of the big markets in Canada: Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. Take your pick, possibly all three. It would be nice to have all three at the same time. And let's get going on that. Speaking of Diana Matheson, that panel that you guys were on, the last Women's World Cup panel, was so fantastic. I mean, it was just wonderful. Do you any fun stories from that experience? Because it really was just a wonderful way to watch that tournament. I mean, you guys playing off each other, all the banter, it was really great. And,
yeah, I mean, I swear I'm more fun than I seemed.
I mean, you were my favorite because you weren't afraid to deliver the bad news, right? You weren't afraid to correct flights of fancy. And as someone that goes on a million tangents, I appreciate when, a moderator can step in and put me in my place. Like,
yeah, no, I was thinking about this the other night, and it was a funny story that was caught on camera, really. Because it was the one day that, like, Kaylin wore her hair up and these massive earrings. Like, they were the size of a calculator. And that's they're enormous. And she's not the most, like, sit still broadcaster either, right? Which is great. It's her style. So she was kind of gesturing around, and then she turned to say something to Diana, and this massive calculator earring just went clunk onto the glass desk. And we all just everyone just sort of was like, what do we do? And Kaylin just, like, kept on going.
Nice.
No problem. Did great with it. Yeah. It was one of those moments, and I'm like, yeah, I bet this has never happened in this room before. Most of the dudes who do this.
Yeah.
Did she break the glass table or not a problem?
No.
Amazing. That reminds me.
Just wasn't secured very well.
I saw a viral clip of, I think it was a reporter in front of the Euro Cup, and a breeze took the cup off its table, and everybody was trying to pick it up after, and it was on live television. So that kind of stuff,
things, right? Those are
yeah,
the best
yeah,
things.
exactly.
Can't beat live TV.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen James Duthie with big hoop earrings, so certainly.
Definitely not.
Let's get you out on this then, Claire. The mantra, and you've talked about this a little bit, or I guess alluded to this a little bit. The mantra for Canada going into this tournament is changing the color of the medal. After winning the back-to-back bronzes at the past two. In order for Canada to do that, what needs to go right?
Yeah, they need to not come third in their group. That's the first thing. I think that's like, we're all in agreement about that, right? Basically, for those viewers who have not had a close look at the bracket, if you come third in your group, first of all, you need to be one of the two best third place teams, which I don't think would be difficult. I think this would be the group, if you're going to be a third place team, that you'd probably get through. The challenge with being the third place team, though, it would be that you would play the first place team out of the American group, which is likely going to be the Americans. And I don't think anybody here is under any sort of delusion that the Americans aren't going to just walk through this tournament, because they probably will.
Yeah.
There's something fascinating about the Americans that it's just people call it arrogance, but it's actually, they're just very appropriately confident in their abilities. And they have this attitude, and I think it translates to probably just like a healthy but vicious level of competition and training, because there are people waiting in the wings to take your place, for sure.
Oh yeah.
And they approach everything like that. And even when they're down a goal or two, you can never count. I haven't seen them down 2 goals in a long time, but you can never count them out. And so I think avoiding them is step one. And like I said, it's an interesting tournament. I mean, the Canadians were third place in their group in 2012 and won a bronze medal, right? So it's a tournament where a couple of well-placed wins and you're in a medal game. And conversely, a couple of well-placed losses and you're not. So yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shapes out, because I mean, first of all, the Americans, when they play Sweden, fun things can happen. So I think they'll come first place in their group, but we remember 2016, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and yet the Canadians are playing against some really evenly matched teams, right? I think they're actually fairly evenly matched with Great Britain and with Japan. And it's really hard to see how they'll come out of that. If they come second in their group, they get flipped to the other side of the draw, and I am never an advocate for like trying to come second. I think you should approach every game as if you're going to win.
Yep.
And you should try to win every game, and you should aim to come first in this group. But coming second does have them avoid the Americans in likely a semifinal matchup if they can make it through. I think they match up well against the Dutch. We'll probably end up on that side of the draw as well. And but like I said, I mean, it really ends up being a little bit of a toss up. I think I like I said before, I think it's good they increased the roster size to 22, because injuries really can ruin a tournament here. And having 3 goalkeepers is actually really important. One of them gets injured, then you at least have some depth.
Yeah.
And I think it really only benefits teams like the Canadians to increase really the rota of attacking players, honestly. I favor their chances to repeat a bronze. I think getting to the gold medal match is a difficult feat. Not impossible, but I think it's a bit of a difficult road to get there. And yet tables could turn, and an unfavorable quarterfinal matchup could, especially if they're not scoring, right? Especially if they're not scoring, an unfavorable quarterfinal matchup could be difficult for them. So I'm hopeful, but I'm also at times realistic. I think you've noticed that about me. So I really hope they do well. I really hope they find their scoring feet, and I really hope that they push the teams that they come up against. That they really do push them.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining the show, Claire. This has been great.
No problem, guys. I didn't even. You can't even see. I'm wearing an Arnold Schwarzenegger T-shirt. I don't know who I was messaging with, but I was all like, "How dressed
Mitchell.
up do I have to be?"
That's fine. I've got my summer weight scarf on, so you know.
Oh, yes. I heard about your winter weight scarf causing you trouble.
Oh yeah. I had to wear it around my leg. BMO was pretty humid, so.
Yeah. I logged in early enough to hear you guys talking about what it was like to be back in the stadium as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And the hammering on, like, stomping on the stands.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I didn't go to a ton of TFC games, but I went to enough, and I went to enough games period as a fan to remember what that feels like. I mean, it's a very visceral feeling, right? And it got me feeling even a little bit nostalgic, and I haven't lived in Toronto for like 3 years, but I'm really glad you guys are able to get back there and experience
it was pretty fantastic. You know, we can argue about the timing in this craziness, you know, till we're blue in the face, but it was a privilege, and you know, I'm looking forward to Wednesday, and it will be almost double the fans, so let's see what that entails, right? You know, cautiously optimistic.
Certainly as a player, that enthusiasm is really appreciated and felt. And I mean, the games are nothing without the fans, right? It's just not as fun. Like I said, like even opposing fans are fun. So, well, again, I'm missing TFC games.
Yeah.
Quite the opposing fans. Yeah. So I'm glad you guys are getting back there, and I'm glad that everybody is excited to do it too. I know it is still a very weird time. Please, everybody, wash your hands and wear a mask.
Good advice. Absolutely good advice. And looking forward to seeing you on the CBC as the tournament gets into full swing.
Cool, guys. Thanks for watching.
No worries. Cheers.
All right. Bye.
Mm-hmm. Oops.
Well, that was awesome. Great to get some Olympic insight and all kinds of great stories from broadcasting as well. I guess let's pick up a little bit on maybe the iconic moment of that TFC game, and that was Jozy Altidore scoring a header. I mean, the second he got subbed on, it was pretty special, but you almost knew something was coming, considering you know, just the state of the game and how everything had been going, and Jozy's uncanny ability to deliver in the big moments. Like,
so clutch.
I can't remember. Maybe the last iconic moment like that was Jozy scoring against Montreal in the Canadian Championship.
It was
quiet now thing. Like
it absolutely was.
But this one was probably the most special that there's been in a long time in terms of just like iconic Toronto FC moments.
Well, I mean, you know, the second that he was on the sidelines, the VMO, the temperature in that place went up by about 100 million degrees. And then once the substitution board came up, it was pretty special. And, you know, I got to sit in the Red Patch Boys section in the South End, so 112. And that's exactly where he ran to while he kissed the badge and did his jump celebration. I jumped so hard, my Apple Watch fell off my arm and I had to go chase it, which is pretty funny because the last time I was in the South End and I jumped really hard, my phone fell out of my jacket and I ended up stomping on my phone and cracking the screen. So I'm not very good at cheering. But wow, what a vibe. Like what an unbelievable vibe that was. It was pretty special. I'll remember it forever. Some great photographs came out of that, like the close-up of Josmer mid-jump, and then there's one right when Paz has just jumped on his back and the team's about to rush him. It's just a beautiful image. I mean, you said it right here, moment of the season so far. How can it not be? Really?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and obviously you wish they could have gotten the 3 points in that game. That's the one thing. One thing, obviously, that's the is still disappointing was that was a really strong Toronto FC performance, and they still weren't able to pick up all 3 points. And we all know how much they need 3 points right now, as much as they can, considering the slow start to the season. But I will say it did still feel like positive momentum a little bit. Maybe that's just the rose-colored glasses from being at BMO.
No, without
performance
question.
In general, everything just felt like it was still, they're still moving in the right direction, unquestionably.
Well, I mean, here's my question. Do you think that was a penalty on Bones?
Yes, I do think so. Yeah.
So do I.
Yeah.
So we put that argument to bed. You know, TFC taking their foot off the gas, either because they've been deflated by getting scored on early or they've been emboldened by scoring, is something that they've got to work on. You know, I mean, George and I, we were my friend George, who was at the game with me. We were watching that Oro Nani battle the whole game long, right? Like they were going after each other. So, I mean, there were some aggressive sort of tomfoolery shenanigans going on with the Orlando team, and they were goal dangerous that whole game. So to expect that they weren't going to at least threaten an equalizer, I think may have been a mistake on behalf of TFC, but I don't think it's on the coach. I think his subs were pretty great. I mean, obviously the Jozy sub, maybe the Jefferson for Mullins, and it pains me to say this because you know how much I love Patrick Mullins. Didn't I say Oro versus Nani? I thought I did. Yeah, it pains me to say it, but that might have been in air. It was in the 90th, so I mean, we're not really talking about a whole lot of minutes that Yef missed out on. But I don't know. What was your perspective on all of that?
I mean, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, you know, it's disappointing to again see them concede shortly after scoring. Like it was a hallmark of the Greg Vanney best teams, right? Where if they scored first, they were winning. There was no question about it. Like I think they almost had a perfect record when they scored the first goal. So that in itself, you know, good teams get the lead and keep it. So that's the main disappointing thing. But one thing that people have been bringing up a lot in the comments since literally the start of the show is Jefferson Soteldo and his performance, and whether or not you
can say it, and also whether or not he's better than Armando Cooper.
You know, obviously his first home performance. What were your thoughts on his play? Because he's definitely quite a showman, and you know he's yeah, it was just a fun match from him overall.
One of my favorite moves. I mean, I remember when we were all watching at the Rec Room, MLS Cup 2019. I've never heard you scream louder than when Paz did that midfield dance where he just undressed all of Seattle. That little bit of step over magic for Yef coming up the middle was pretty fantastic. I mean, can he finish? I had this conversation. Being a DP in Major League Soccer, even now in 2021, has certain expectations. And I think if you're an attacking DP, that expectation is goals. It's not assists. It's not dribbles. It's goals. It's unfair, but that's our league. So is he an upgrade on Piatti? That's question number one. And question number two, he's a terrific player. Let's not, I mean, even now, and he hasn't even really adapted into the squad or maybe found his feet in MLS yet. He's a terrific player. I mean, this is an exciting player to watch. That cannot be argued. But is he a DP? In the strictest logical sense of the word, is he a DP? That's the question I keep coming back to.
I think he's unquestionably better than Piatti. I think Piatti was a solid player, but I think Soteldo undoubtedly has much more skill and is much more dangerous player overall. And obviously it's a very small sample size, so I think he's only going to get better. But I do agree that, and obviously Mike's not here to defend him, which is the best time to take shots.
I know, it's amazing. Let's go.
Mike tweeted out that Soteldo's too good for this league, which might end up being true. But like you said, I think,
but in a weirdo way too. Yeah.
Like we need to see the finished product first before we can start saying things like that. And I don't think there's any question it's coming, considering his performances and considering what we've seen from him. But we have to see it first before we can start. Really putting this guy up on a major pedestal. And again, that's a league thing, but that's mostly a Toronto FC thing. We've had some of the best designated players in Major League Soccer history, so we have an unbelievably high standard. And one of the other ones went out there and scored in like his limited minutes. So
yeah,
obviously it's a finished product thing. And yeah, I mean, I absolutely love what Soteldo did during that game, but we're gonna have to see more goals and assists from him before we're
I mean, it's a wonderful quote. He may be too good for this league, because it absolutely encapsulates what I'm saying. Like, other leagues can afford to blow that kind of money on a technician who's got his skill set. In Major League Soccer, the non-goal thing for a designated player is a serious issue, unfortunately. And I think that may be where we're at here. And I'm absolutely not writing the guy off, because I mean, how can you? He was such quality out there. But, in the same way that we'll never have an Olivier Giroud as our backup striker because MLS, and the first team that goes all in on 3 defensive designated players may upset the apple cart. But right now in 2021, a DP in this league has to be generating goals. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's one of the reasons that they trucked out for why Piatti didn't get an extension. You got to be generating goals, and we ain't there yet. Now, sorry, go ahead. I'm sure you had something better than what I was going to say.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I'd say again we're not there yet, but I do think it could potentially be coming. But
okay,
with that being said, on the goal angle, we all know Toronto FC have major scoring issues. That's been an issue all season, and those certainly aren't going to be helped by the news today that Ayo Akinola is likely going to miss the rest of the regular season with an ACL injury suffered during his first ever start with Canada, playing against the United States. Obviously, that's a massive blow for the player, and it's going to be a big blow for Toronto FC as well. That's their joint leading scorer.
Yep.
Big blow for Canada. We can talk about that a bit later. But from a Toronto FC perspective, yeah, not good.
I mean, my heart goes out for the kid. He just came back from a long-term injury. He's just rounding into form. He just declared for Canada. He's played 36 minutes for the Canadian men's national team. It's bad. It's bad timing. It's bad luck. My best wishes to the speediest of recoveries. It just sucks all around. Yvonne asked, is there a rule if a player is ruled out of season due to injury, a roster spot opens up? There is. It would require TFC to make the commitment. Basically, regardless of what his prognosis is for recovery, they're saying he's not coming back, because I don't think you can recall him if you claim that season ending or long-term injury list spot. I'm not sure if you can. So it would be a chess move on TFC's part. They would be basically saying in no uncertain terms that Ayo's not coming back. If his prognosis is bad enough, it's kind of a no-brainer decision. So yeah, they could activate Erickson Gallardo, who's been just about as unlucky as Ayo has, and see what that is. But Nick made a comment ahead of Yvonne's, which is Dom Dwyer cannot finish, and I think we need to discuss Dwyer before Josmer came on. I don't know who tweeted it out, but I think the best one I saw was he looks like someone coming back from a serious knee injury. He's late to arrive at balls. I will say this to his credit. The bad body language that I expected when he wasn't getting service, the arms aloft, just being generally uncomfortable to look at and to be around, hasn't manifest. Look at the way he was. Look at his body language when he was subbed off for Jozy. Like, he wasn't surprised, but he certainly wasn't pissed, and he applauded him onto the field. So, at the very least, your not in form striker isn't being a jerk, which is good, because he does have precedent for being a jerk sometimes. What do you think, Mitch? Do you think I know you love him? I know you you're high on Dom Dwyer. Do you think it's going to click? I mean, now's the time, right?
Yeah, certainly now's the time. I mean, it's a big opportunity. Io going out for one of Patrick Mullins, Dom Dwyer, or even Jordan Perusa, who got recalled to show up and you know, again, the service is getting significantly better. That ball from Justin Morrow on the weekend is a perfect example. Everything Pozuelo can do. Soteldo, like all. It's not just the fact that these strikers are isolated anymore. They're going to get opportunities to score. One of them has to start scoring if the season's going to turn around. And honestly, I'm not sure which one that is because
It's Patrick Mullins. It's Patrick Mullins.
None of the three of them have looked particularly goal dangerous this season. So,
what's put on your coach boots? All right. Do you think it's because they're not getting minutes, like consistent minutes? And they're all sort of flow strikers, and they need to be out there even when they're not performing, just to get into the groove.
No, because at this point, I don't think any of the three of them are starting strikers in MLS, and that's why you had Io Akinola and Jozy Altidore there to be your starting strikers. So I think obviously best case, you got to hope Jozy can stay healthy here and keep in form, and there's your guy. But none of the three of those guys are starting.
So much Mullins slander in the chat. I'm going to explode. There's so much Mullins slander. So, okay, keep your coach boots on. Do you give Perusa a shot? Because he's coming in fresh face, unspoiled, goal machine for TFC2, right? Yeah. I mean, as much as it pains me to say it, does he jump right up the depth chart? Right.
I don't see why not. Like I'm always of the mentality that, you take an opportunity on a young guy because you know what you have in Dom Dwyer and Patrick Mullins. You don't necessarily 100% know what you have in Jordan Perusa. So sure, there's a chance he'll let you down, but there's also a chance that he gets a run of confidence and all of a sudden he's way better than either of those two guys. So I think we see Jordan Perusa at some point over the next little bit. And obviously we've seen glimpses with Toronto FC2 and in the USL Championship of how good of a player Jordan Perusa can be. So yeah, I don't see why not giving him an opportunity here.
Absolutely. I agree with you. People are asking about Garrett McLaughlin. We don't have any roster spots left.
No, we don't. But I will say he's definitely impressing with Toronto FC2. I do
scored a hat trick. Scored a hat. He's team of the week. I mean, come on. Yeah,
I do think that Houston Dynamo made a mistake giving up on him so early, and I think that there is a chance at some point he ends up with Toronto FC, but I don't think it's going to happen this year, certainly. And we've got Mikey Singh back. How are you doing, Mikey?
What's going on, gentlemen? What have you guys been talking about?
Nothing. We've been waiting for you to come back and tell us about this press conference. So go.
Yeah, we just kind of sat here. Nothing. Didn't say anything.
Yeah. Nothing to talk about at all, eh?
No.
Yeah, we had a staring contest with Claire for about 15 minutes. Best interview ever.
Oh, man, I'm so disappointed. I missed the end of that. I'll have to go back and watch. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about, the press conference. I got to speak to Dom Dwyer.
Oh, nice.
And that was the first time we actually spoke. Yeah, it was the first time we actually spoke to him since he signed in Toronto. And just off the bat, like the reason why he signed here, the team was training in Orlando, and he was obviously coming off like a serious knee injury and surgery. So, and with the team, he really believed in the team. He liked the environment that there was here. So he really thought that, and his quote exactly is that it was like meant to be. The fact that he should be joining this TFC team with the roster and the potential, I guess, what he had there, like an opportunity is the word I'm looking for, of course. And I think he sounds like he's really happy to be here. He I don't know if you guys have talked about Jefferson as yet, but he called Jefferson Soteldo. Yep. I like it. He called Jefferson Soteldo magic. And just seeing what he's doing in training, like essentially it's like magical was what he was saying, and special. And obviously he talked about the Io Akinola injury, which is a devastating thing that nobody wants to see. And he spoke about the fact that he's had knee injuries in the past, and he knows that you can come back stronger. And the team all took that to heart. They received the news this morning, and they mentioned that they're going to play for Iowa Canola tomorrow. So yeah, my first impression, I guess, of Dom Dwyer, he has had incidents with the media in the past in his past gigs, but that press conference was professional, and he was well spoken, and I got to commend him for all of that. So he said all the right things. So shout out there, Dom Dwyer. Also, probably important for me to hit is one of the questions I asked him is whether or not he feels he's up to speed yet after that knee injury. And he mentioned 55, 65 minutes, whatever it was he played last time out. That was the most he's gotten so far this season. So it's just a matter of getting minutes under his belt. You can't really replicate game time. So essentially, that's where his head is at, and I think it comes with winning as well as what he said. So he's not there yet, but he's getting there. Essentially,
would you start him on Wednesday, Mike?
If Jozy's available, I start Jozy. But other than Jozy, yeah, he's my number 2 option there up top.
That's Mullen slander. That's sounding an awful lot like Mullen slander. But anyway, go ahead.
I'm sorry, man. This is a former designated player. We know what Dom Dwyer is capable of doing. And
what about Perusa? I mean, we were just saying, what about Perusa?
So that's another thing I was going to get to is Javier Perez was asked about Jordan Perusa. Great segue there, Jeff, by the way.
That's what I do.
He was asked about Jordan Perusa, and like we've heard about Jordan, he's got this tenacity about him, this edginess about him, and Javier Perez noted that, and he also said that he believes Jordan will get an opportunity here with the first team, which is actually sort of a change in events. I mean, maybe the Iowa Canola thing has something to do with it, but Chris Armas told us that when Jordan Perez was initially loaned out, the plan was for it to be like an 8-9 game loan stint, have him called back, and then rejoin Toronto FC 2. But with everything that's gone on, I think things have changed, and the plan for Jordan now is for him to be in the cards. I would slot him somewhere alongside Mullins in that depth chart. I think Mullins he has that veteran presence. You know what you're getting out of Patrick Mullins, whereas Jordan, it's untapped potential, and we really don't know the floor there that we'd be getting with Jordan. Even though I'm all for playing the young guns, I'm all for playing the kids. So when the time is appropriate, absolutely, I expect him to get his runouts. But with Dom Dwyer, Patrick Mullins ahead of him in the depth chart, obviously Jozy Altidore, I'm interested to see how much playing time he does get here moving forward. I think that pretty much sums up the gist of the press conference. I did ask him about his fullback situation, because right now the only natural fullbacks on the roster, with Kamar Lawrence and Richie Lorea both away for international duty, is Aro and Justin Morrow. And Justin Morrow has yet to go the full 90 minutes in back-to-back games so far this season. So there is a question where he's been dealing with a lot of lingering injuries too. And with this game, a Saturday to Wednesday game, there is question marks there as to whether or not he'll be able to go the full 90. And aside from Justin Morrow, who do you have there to kind of throw at fullback? So I asked him about that, and he said essentially was that they're playing to win right now. Like they need to pick up the 3 points. So reading between the lines there, he's essentially saying they're going to roll back out Morrow and Aro. And if one of them comes down with an injury and they need to make a change, what he said is you'll see us solidify that position. So read between the lines, maybe that's a center back going to be played at that position, but it's interesting to see, because right now what he's looking for is stability and structure within the team. And maybe someone like a Chris Mavinga and Luke Singh sliding to the center back, something like that. He'll have to get creative there. But what he also said is when you get creative, it's also a gamble. And from my impressions about Perez right now, he's not a coach that likes to take gambles.
No, he doesn't. Yeah.
So we'll see. Read between the lines there, and we'll see.
Vanderveel. Then it would be the first time he played fullback for us, right? Like when he was on the team, he was only playing center back. That would be hilarious. I'm sure he's still got his key to the weight room at BMO Field training ground and his one training top. So there you go.
I wanna ask this to you, gentlemen. So Jefferson Soteldo, Jeff, to you specifically, Jefferson Soteldo.
Yep.
Talk to me. Do you think he has the potential to be the best or one of the best players in Major League Soccer?
I think I'm gonna. It's funny that you missed our whole diatribe about this, but I think I'm gonna quote Mitch's rundown. Jefferson Soteldo wears short shorts and is pretty good at the sports, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Okay, I cannot discount how he made me squeal with delight on some of his close control plays at the weekend. My question is this: if he doesn't start scoring goals, does that? I mean, DPs in MLS, especially attacking DPs in MLS, come with an expectation to score goals. Are we happy with a technical player that creates chances, does all the little things, has excellent close control, pulls 2 or 3 defenders out of position so the rest of the guys can score, but doesn't score themselves? Are we okay with that?
Good things?
Yeah.
No, they are good things, but in the calculus of what a DP is, right? In the calculus of what a DP is, it's a much more stringent requirement, right? I'm not talking about how amazing it is. I'm talking about on paper, this is what a DP is. This is what Jeff is.
That's a fair question, Jeff.
Yeah,
because
your quote is he may be too good for this league, and I'm extending that to its logical conclusion, right? This league can't pay for a luxury player like that under a DP tag. Do you know what I mean?
So that's a good question, Jeff, like fair, because that's something Bill Manning and Ali Curtis kind of talked about before the season is they want someone who can be capable of scoring goals at a high clip. But, encompassed in all of that is creating those chances. The game it's so much bigger than just scoring goals, right? And I think Jefferson Soteldo encompasses that quite a bit because of all the things that you talked about, his ability to take people on 1v1, 1v2, 1v3, 1v4 at times. You saw the play where he won the ball in his own half off a player.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Beat like 3-4 Orlando City players, showed off just how fast of a player he is.
He took their souls. He didn't beat them. He collected their souls. But that's
and then laid the ball off to Dom Dwyer for what should have been a goal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not showing up on the score sheet. Are you still not happy with that kind of performance? It's at the end of the day, like this is a team sport. It comes down to things that are bigger than Jefferson Soteldo. Jozy Altidore is the one who's going to be paid to strictly score goals. So if Jefferson Soteldo comes in and gives me a performance like he did on Saturday night, he's the type of player that gets BMO fans in the stadium. He's the type of player that gets jerseys sold. He's the type of player that gets people, as Bill Manning said when they signed him, gets people on the edge of their seat every time he touches the ball. And for me, like, yes, absolutely, 100 times out of 100 times, this guy is just turned 24 years old. He has a bright future ahead of him. I know, like when he was subbed off, he was a little pissed there, and again, like, are there attitude issues there? Does he think he's too good for MLS? Perhaps, but at the end of the day, like, so did Sebastian Giovinco. You saw the way Sebastian Giovinco would yell at his teammates every time they lost the ball, or
do they even put stanchions on the sidelines anymore? Because Sebastian used to kick him all the time, and they were just like, forget about the stanchion. It's funny because I am getting schooled in the comments, and the comments are right. MB4 was a non-goal scoring designated player, right? We spent big money on a 6 and rode a DP level number 6 all the way to the championship. So yeah, I'm it's the language outgoing with Piatti that I think I'm stuck on, right? Like, we want an upgrade on Piatti. He needs to be goal dangerous. They got to contribute about maybe 10 goals a season, not Josmer numbers, but certainly enough to add to the attack. But you're right. At the end of the day, what he's doing is unbelievable.
I love Piatti, but Soteldo is twice the player that Piatti was for Toronto FC.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Armando Cooper, though. My goodness.
Yeah, maybe no Armando Cooper.
Yeah. All right, let's get off of this before we go too far. I guess we have a couple more things to touch on before we wrap up the show this week. One of them being the Canadian Championship format being announced for this next upcoming season. Obviously, we still haven't played the 2020 Canadian Championship final between Toronto FC and Forge FC, so we'll see when that gets
4th July 2022.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. At any rate, though, a new format includes 13 teams, starting with a 10-team preliminary round. Toronto FC, Forge FC, and CF Montreal all given byes to the quarterfinal round of the competition based on past performance. From a Toronto FC perspective, they'll open the tournament against either York United FC or Masters Football Academy. That's mid to late September. It's now a single knockout competition and a wrap up in late October with the final. I mean, I'm pretty excited about this. It seems like a more open competition. I think finally we're seeing MLS teams and Canadian Premier League teams treated pretty equally in this tournament, which I think is exactly the way it should be, based on the fact that they're both technically top divisions within Canada. So I'm pretty excited. I think it's going to be fun, and the single knockout is just going to create chaos. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see a couple of big upsets here.
And they got that. Go ahead, Jad.
Go ahead. Well, do we know the format? Like, is it extra time and then penalties, or straight to penalties? Do we know that?
I'm assuming just extra time than the penalties. Like, I'd be surprised if it's the other way around, but you never know.
You never know.
I'm really excited because obviously they wanted this, but the fact that there'll be either TFC in a Masters or TFC in York United, that local, York region, Toronto, whatever you want to, Southern Ontario, whatever you want to call it, kind of derby there. That's really exciting. We got a couple other ones on there as well, which should make some entertaining rivalries. And I think that's what's really important here, is because obviously rivalries sell, and that's how you kind of best way to sort of market the league and market the Canadian Championship. What I'd like to see moving forward is the league or this competition expand even more. I want to see more Canadian teams involved than just the 16 or 20 that are here. I think Canada in general has a lot of local clubs, a lot of talent. Not saying that they'd go on and win the competition, but just giving that exposure just helps grow the game a little bit more. This year would have been tough to do that, so just in the future, I think that's something to keep an eye out on. And how the States does theirs with the U.S. Open Cup. Massive tournament. I think there's like 90 something teams in theirs. So I think Canada can slowly start to get to a greater pool here.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We've seen the level of quality that something like a League One Ontario has in terms of the players that have come out of it. I mean, heck, Daniel Jebison was playing in League One Ontario for a bunch of years. So there's certainly plenty of good players playing throughout Canada, and I think this is another opportunity again for some of these guys to really go up against MLS teams and show their abilities. And some of the best stories from the Canadian Championships in the past couple of years have been guys playing against their former teams, scoring big goals. So I think we might see a bit more of that in the next little bit.
Absolutely. Every year is a new format, right? Like, it hasn't been the same format for 2 years straight for as long as I can remember. So it's all up in the air, right? Every year the Can Champ has a different vibe to it. I'm holding out for a double final, right? They'll play the 2020 and the 2021 final in the same venue at the same time. It'll be like a BOGO sale, and it'll be fantastic. And they'll only sell Smirnoff Ice. They won't have any beer. It will just be Smirnoff Ice, and it will be fabulous and totally humid, indeed.
I will say though, like you said, they've revamped this competition like 10 times. Somehow every time there's just one or two like amazing moments that come out of every Voyageurs Cup. Like, this is a competition that it used to be like 3 teams, and it's always outkicked its coverage in terms of how good the soccer is, how good the moments are. I mean, we talk about the Will Johnson leg break, Miracle in Montreal, like all kinds of just incredibly,
that Raheem Edwards cross moments to Sebastian Javinko.
There's some special moments that have come out of this competition, and I guess Montreal winning at BMO Field. I know most people don't want to talk about that one as much.
When did that happen? I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, the defending Canadian champions, technically.
Whatever.
All right, we are going pretty overtime here, though, so let's just touch very quickly on Canada. They're going to the knockout stages. They're going to play either Costa Rica or Jamaica, depending upon tonight's game. But I think probably the biggest story for the next little bit is that Ayo Akinola, obviously, and Kyle Larin are both out for the rest of the tournament. who are we bringing in, guys, and how big of a blow is that to Canada? We still got Cavallini in there and Junior Hoylett, and I mean, it's going to be tough.
Corbianu's there.
Oh my God! Please free the kid, please.
Yeah. Free Theo. I mean, can we convince Anthony Jackson Hamel to come out of retirement, lace the boots back up, and save the day? Because that would be pretty fantastic. I think Dwayne Rollins subbed said Tosaint, which isn't the most terrible of shouts. I can see Mitch frowning. He's like, "No, that's a terrible idea. I don't want. He
literally has been injured all season, so that'd be a pretty tough to get him in. You're looking for
Sorry about that. That's a terrible idea.
I like Charlie's shout in our Wake in the Red chat where he mentioned bring in Zachary Broguillard, shore up that defensive line, the wing back positions, and push Tajon Buchanan up higher up the field. Give him an opportunity to, be dangerous there in the attack. And third, he showed that he's a versatile player. We know how dangerous he can be when he gets forward. And I'd like to see him, in a position like that because he also played striker for the Olympic team during the Olympic qualifying there. And he's shown that he can play up top. So why not give this guy a run out? Because there's going to be some competition there. If Broguillard comes in, Larray is there. So there are other options there at the fullback position. So maybe that's the best option there.
Tesho?
I think Tesho's a decent shout too. He's consistently solid. Like, what you're getting with Tesho. He's obviously done some bad things to Toronto FC in recent weeks. So I think he's a great player, and that's the obvious one, I'd say. But I do agree that that's a good shout. I mean, the only thing is it's going to majorly confuse all the European scouts that are watching Tajon because they're like, okay, we had this guy we were bringing in as a wing back, but he's also a winger. Now he's a striker. Like, where do we slot him into our team here? But no, I think obviously that's going to be a big question for Canada going to the next round, and we'll see. Like we said, 2007, the last time Canada won a knockout stage game. So yeah, it's going to be a big one on Sunday. Obviously, you need to start winning these games, and obviously doing so by the time September comes.
Junior Hoylett.
Who do you want? Jamaica or Costa Rica? Doesn't matter.
Probably ideally Costa Rica. I think Canada matches up better with them. I think Jamaica's got more dangerous attacking players. They've got that counter-attacking style that I think Canada doesn't do very well with. And we've seen Jamaica really cause Canada problems in past tournaments as well. So I think you'd rather Costa Rica, but I think Canada matches up pretty solidly with either of these sides, especially with Eustachio back.
Selfishly, I'd like to see Jamaica and Canada because I want to see Kamar Lawrence in action. Don't forget some of his Canadian rivals there, so that would be pretty cool to see. But I'm with Mitch there. I think Costa Rica is probably the better matchup for Canada. I think Jamaica is actually really underrated on paper. They've brought in quite a few names that are notable overseas, and like Canada, they've made some big adds to their roster from obviously people not being able to break in with other countries. So Jamaica is a team that could be a dark horse in this tournament. So I'd try and avoid them as best as I can.
I want to say the last time Canada played Jamaica at the Gold Cup, Kamar Lawrence actually scored a free kick against Canada. So
I remember that too. Hopefully
that doesn't repeat itself. Your boy Junior Hoylett also scored a banger. So that was a pretty good game for him as well. But yeah, hopefully history doesn't repeat itself in that regard as much as we'd like to see Kamar Lawrence put in some good performances. But
striker Sam Piet, think it over. Sleep on it. Striker Sammy P.
I mean, Sam Piet did have a great game against the United States. We'll say that. But
yes.
I don't think we're gonna see based on maybe stature alone.
I have a feeling they'll be leaning heavily into both Lucas Cavallini and Junior Hoylett here. And I don't know if someone like a Tesho gets brought into the side, just how much minutes they'll get moving forward. I think this is a tournament Canada wants to win, and those two are their best options up top. So another thing is I wonder if they'll tweak their formation a bit. Come away from the two strikers, perhaps go with Osorio as a false nine, almost behind one of Junior Hoylett or Lucas Cavallini. Just something to keep an eye on.
That's a good shout. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
we've seen
absolutely. We
Junior
don't have the
Hoylett.
depth.
Yeah, we've seen Junior Hoylett and Cavallini play together for Canada before against the United States, and that went pretty well in terms of them coming on late and scoring that late goal. So
True enough.
Definitely a bunch of permutations to watch for going into that knockout round for Canada. We've got the Olympics coming up. Toronto FC play at home again tomorrow against the New York Red Bulls. So many exciting things to get to over the next week. So definitely excited to watch all of that. Another busy week of soccer, but we'll wrap up the show there. Huge thank you to Clare Rustad for joining us and getting us set for the Olympics. Some great insight there. Thanks to Kevin, Sophia, and Edwin from Homestand Sports for making the show possible. And as always, thanks to all of you for listening, chirping Jeff, watching, interacting. On behalf of Jeffrey Pineski and Michael Singh, until next Tuesday, let's go Canada.
Cheers.